I used to stream for a living. Like that was like my legitimate job. I'd have companies that were like, play this game.
And meanwhile, I just do it once a year and only once a year for
Not
charity.
anymore, baby.
No, I guess not. Holy cow.
Yeah, we're starting the stream as soon as we finish recording today. Very excited. You're going to hear this in the future, so hopefully the stream went well.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
I'm sure it did. It's going to be great.
I'm not out here putting negative thoughts out into the universe.
Hell no.
Not when it comes to the podcast, anyway.
We just had part 1 of Slenderman come out too, so we've got the Slenderman game downloaded.
Yes,
I'm excited. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and you have the new Slenderman game.
Yeah.
I've only played the old one, the 8 pages or whatever. And even then, I don't even think I got past the 4th or 5th page. So this is going to probably make me poop my pants. I don't do well with scary games. I like playing them, but I suck at them.
I really like to play them, but I'm a chicken shit. Like movies, I'm fine, but games, because I'm in it, it's very different.
It's so much more immersive.
Exactly.
Don't break the immersion.
Right. And then also for me, like when I'm scared, my brain stops working. So I can't do puzzles. Like I can't do a game that's like scary and hard. It has to be just one or the other.
Well, okay. And when it comes to horror games, I think there's a very delicate balance between the spooky story and the puzzles. Because for me, I remember playing Amnesia back in the day. Classic scary.
Yeah.
And the scary games for me are the ones where you can't fight back. Because I want to.
Oh, like, absolutely. I want to punch you.
Yeah. If I got a zombie chasing me down, no problem. Pull out the 9mm, bam, bam. But like in Amnesia and Outlast and stuff, you are very much defenseless. And the problem is with that, though, is if the puzzle is too hard or I'm too dumb and you get stuck in the same area for like 3 hours, even if gross skin buddy is chasing you around, you're like, okay, this isn't scary anymore because I just want to get out of here.
You're like, I'm just frustrated right now.
Mad.
For me, it's like Resident Evil and stuff where it's like more, I love Resident Evil, but I won't play it on anything but like easy. I'm not going to lie. Because by the time I have to think hard enough to do some of those puzzles, I'm just like brain scared, no function.
Totally. And the other thing is I'm not very good at puzzles in not scary games anyway. I find them very frustrating. They're just not my cup of tea. Cody loves a good puzzle. And that's why he'll probably be of better sound mind by the time we're in our 80s. Because he'll be like still sharp, whereas I'll be demented and sitting in a corner talking to myself. It's fine. But yeah, Slender Man.
Yeah. All right. Shall we get this party started?
Let's get into it.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Dina.
And I'm Charlotte.
Welcome to the Grim Curriculum Extra Credit.
Welcome. We got some stories for you today. I have an update and then a pretty wacky one. I mean, they're all wacky, let's be real.
I have a fun story and a very not fun story. And then the strange and unusual death for today is really unusual.
Oh, I'm very excited for that. So shall we start with me or you, do you think? I have an update from Mr. Gary Ridgway.
Ugh. All right, go for it.
Okay, aka the Green River Killer. We haven't covered him on the show yet, but he's definitely on the list. He is what I would call one of the big hitters. I mean, usually if they have a quote-unquote nickname, the Green River Killer, for example, that usually means they've spent some time in the media and whatnot.
His victim count is absolutely crazy. And the interesting thing to me about Gary Ridgway is when they were trying to catch him, they went to Ted Bundy. Whoa. And they were like, hey, how do we catch this guy? Yeah. What would you do? Help us out. And he gave a bunch of advice and most of it was correct.
Crazy. That very much reminds me of them going to see Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs and being like, we got a Buffalo Bill problem. Help us. Probably a lot of inspiration comes from real life in that sense. But yes, Mr. Gary Ridgway, who is now 75 years old, is currently serving 49 consecutive, one after the other life sentences without the possibility of parole for murder. Good. The only reason he was not sentenced to death for what he did is because he made a deal and keeps giving law enforcement more tips about who or what he was involved with.
Well, he killed so many people and so many of them are linked to unsolved cases or missing people and things like that, that he's holding on to that information. And unfortunately, he's one of those people who dumb as a rock.
Yep.
But an very intelligent serial killer. Like, he was good at that one. Everyone's good at something.
Yes.
And Gary Ridgway was good at murdering sex workers.
Yeah, so before we get into it, I'll give you a little more history on him if you're not familiar. Obviously, we are. But throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Ridgway is believed to have murdered at least 71 teenage girls and women near Seattle and Tacoma, Washington. Now, I say at least because he's said the number is far beyond it. And like Dina just said, they keep connecting him to missing persons and unsolved cases all the freaking time, which is actually potentially the reason why we're talking about him today. So he has recently been moved from the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla to King County Jail in Seattle very recently. King County Sheriff's Office would not specify why Ridgway was transported across Washington State. This will mark his first time in Seattle in 21 years.
Wow.
So since his arrest in 2001, pertaining to the Green River murder situation, the King County Sheriff's offices are continuing to actively investigate potentially related cases, which is why they think he's been moved. So they reckon that he's been moved from Walla Walla to Kings County because he may be telling them some more information. Now, this is all very new sort of news. It's just kind of come up in August of 2024. Loved ones of his victims are expressing shock at this move. So Donna Hurley, who is the mother of 15-year-old Lori Ann Reposnick, she was killed by Ridgway in 1983. She says, when she found out, it just sent a wave of nausea through her. Her heart goes out to those detectives and those families who are waiting on this parasite. He's going to face his final judgment, and I prefer to leave that in a higher power's hands. So while his reason for being in King County hasn't been officially released, there are folks who think that there is that possibility that he's working with authorities to unearth victims who have never been found or identified. I hope they're going to get something out of him because there's still a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to his victims. Someone called Cloyd Steiger, who is not directly related to the Ridgway case, but he is a 36-year-old veteran with the Seattle Police Department. He kind of gave his opinion on why he thinks that Gary might be back in King County. He says, and I quote, "I thought two reasons that they would be bringing him back to King County. Number one, they were going to charge him with a case that he hasn't been charged with already, or there is some issue with his sentencing and resentencing, and they're going to correct it in the same court that he was tried in the first place."
That makes sense.
But like I said, with him, it's kind of a mixed bag because he does have such a high victim count, both confirmed victims and victims that he claims to have had some sort of involvement in.
I don't know this for sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. He is in maximum security, right?
Very much so.
Okay, so he is going from maximum to maximum. This isn't like he's being downgraded or anything like that?
It's not a Paul Bernardo situation where he's being like sent from maximum to like a more medium or anything like that. From what I can see, this kind of idea of him being moved to testify or give further information makes a lot of sense. The other thing too is, as part of his deal, his plea deal, is King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office spokesperson Casey McNerthney said that he has actually agreed to plead guilty to any and all future cases that are tied to him. So if they do pop up and the confessions that he has given are corroborated by reliable evidence, he has already agreed that he is guilty of it if he's tied to it.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting as well, as much as because of his plea deal, he is serving life in prison without parole. But if he is convicted of a murder outside of King County, he very much could still be under the radar for the death penalty.
And that sounds great in theory if you think that's what they should do with him. But again, you said he's what, 71?
75, I believe.
Okay,
now,
so average time on death row, you're looking at 10 to 15 years. He's never going to make it. But the thing is, he's going to die in jail. And at least there is that. We know he's not going to go free. It's a real risk with a lot of these people, but with him, because of all these life sentences and the fact that, you know, you can get one appealed, you can get one dismissed, whatever, you still got like 40 some more.
Yeah, he, like I said, 49 consecutive. So even if for some reason he manages to remove his name from a couple of those, buddy, you still got even one life sentence is a lot of time, obviously. Usually they say 25 to life. He's got 49.
Yeah.
So even if by some horrific miracle for Gary that he got 40 of those thrown out, he's still on the hook for 9 lifetimes and counting, going back up. Like, in the sense that I think if anything, he's not going to get time removed. He's going to get time tacked on because he's admitting and corroborating to more and more cases all the time.
Yeah. And the thing with him that is concerning is he was married, I think 3 or 4 times. Yes. He was married a lot. So what he would do is he was active whenever he wasn't married. And then as his marriage was beginning to dissolve, he started killing again. So he has a lot of these like cooling off periods, they call them.
Yes.
But we saw this with John Wayne Gacy and BTK, where it was like, oh, he was actually still active during those times. So he has a lot of kind of unaccounted for time where I feel like if they did find more victims, of course, that's absolutely tragic, but at least it's, you know, an explanation for what happened to some of these people.
Absolutely. And the really gross thing about Mr. Ridgway is, yes, he was married 3 times, I believe. He has 1 child, a son. And he would actually often use a picture of his son to lure women to him, to lull them into a false sense of security. He would kill his victims usually in his home, his truck, or a secluded area before dumping them in wooded areas around, I believe, the Seattle airport and things like that. He later reported that he had killed so many that he actually lost count.
I saw you posted something about him in the Discord that you and I share. So I listened back to a few old episodes of different podcasts about him. And 2 things that stood out to me. One was he would not only show some of them pictures, there were a few instances where his son was in the car with him.
Yep.
And he also was responsible, like his day job was he did the designs for painting some of like the lines and stuff on vehicles. And there's so many vehicles out there still that were done by Gary Ridgway. And that
Ridgway
just like,
originals.
Yeah. He's a bad guy. He is one of the worst.
Yeah, there's no coming back from what he freaking did.
Absolutely throw him into a pit once we get the answers. But I mean, I feel like in situations like that, I wish we could just torture him for the information, but we can't do that.
No, unfortunately, they frown upon that. I hope for his victims' families that they are able to get, of course, the closure and maybe just some freaking answers.
Oh my God.
That they've been worried about. Especially for the folks who lost people and never found out what truly happened to them. As much as you never want to find out they've been murdered by a monster like this, at least you have the answer, and at least there may be some comfort in the fact that that bitch is already in jail and he is never getting out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll leave it at that for Mr. Gary Ridgway. We'll definitely cover him at some point, but I think that's going to be a series of episodes.
I mean, when someone has that many victims, how do you do it in one episode without skipping over people? And I always feel like we need to talk about each and every victim. I will never want to be the kind of podcast that's like, and in this month he killed 6 people. Like, I think as terrible as it is, you owe them at least their names.
Absolutely. To say their names if you know it.
Yes.
Because, I mean, he has quite a few Jane Does that are potentially linked to him as well. He tended to go for vulnerable people like teenagers and sex workers. He would pick them up in his truck or whatever have you, which is a story that is not a new one when it comes to serial killers, unfortunately. But yeah. That's the update on the I was almost going to call him the Green Bay Killer, the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway.
One thing I just want to add about him that really stood out to me, I mentioned Ted Bundy. They asked him about him.
Yes.
Ted Bundy, one of the things that people who are like, oh, I love Ted Bundy, don't know is he would revisit the bodies of his victims.
Yes.
He would go as far as to put makeup on them because Ted Bundy was a necrophiliac, and a lot of people choose to ignore that when they talk about how quote unquote great he was. He said Gary Ridgway will go back to these corpses.
And he did.
And he did.
And he even said himself, he did assault these corpses in an necrophilia kind of way.
Yeah.
And he explained this away as being sort of a way for him to get his jollies off without murdering anybody else.
Yeah.
So it would kind of placate him for a little while before he felt the need to go find a new victim,
and
foul.
Not to get too gross, but I will. He was also the kind of person where he wouldn't go right after he killed them. He would go until the corpse was absolutely way too putrid for him to actually want to do anything with it. So again, this guy's a monster. I was thinking after you had posted about him that he is someone we should add to kind of the new-ish episodes list that we're going to be doing in the near future, because he is a monster and we should talk about him.
I think a lot of the serial killers of this kind of caliber that we cover typically, and I mean, Gary Ridgway was working in the 80s. So I mean, the 70s, the 80s, that's a very common time for serial killers to be running rampant. But because he didn't get officially caught until much more recently, it kind of does bring him into the modern sort of today's day, how we think about it, if that makes sense.
Yes. And maybe we'll do him for episode 150, 200. I don't know, but he's on the list.
He is on the list. All right. What do we got next?
This is going to bother you.
Oh, they all do.
I know, right? All right. So you may have seen this in the news because it is all over the internet. This story came out September 12th, 2024. This happened back in February. The article reads, Miss Switzerland finalist strangled to death, then pureed in a blender by her husband.
That is not nice.
Kristina Joksimovic, a former Miss Switzerland finalist, was found dead in her home. And she was horrifically strangled and dismembered by her husband, who is only being referred to as Thomas. Thomas was taken into custody and he tried to make an appeal for his release, but it was denied. Sadly, they had 2 children.
Oh my God. Sir, you blended a woman. You're not gonna plea for your fucking release. Hello?
Wait till you hear his reasoning. It's gonna piss you off.
God damn it.
Thomas claims that he acted in self-defense. A medical forensic report that was conducted would directly contradict his claims. According to an autopsy report, she wasn't just strangled to death. They're saying that some of what had led to her death involved the dismemberment.
Oh, so they're saying she was potentially still alive when this began.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Her body was dismembered in a laundry room with a knife and garden shears, and then several body parts were chopped up and put into a hand blender. They were pureed and dissolved in an unknown chemical. They're saying that Thomas showed, and I quote, a noticeably high level of criminal energy, lack of empathy, and cold-bloodedness after killing his wife. So no one thinks this guy is innocent. I want to clarify that. He's saying it was self-defense. Everyone is saying it was total bullshit.
I'm sorry. You don't blend someone in self-defense.
No.
You don't dismember someone in self-defense. So why is it that these idiots think that they can just be like, oh, yes, she came at me, and then you blended her?
Right. Like if, let's say someone comes at you, you kill them in self-defense, the logical mind says you're going to leave them on the ground, call the police and say, hey, this person came at me. I had to kill them to defend myself. It's a little bit harder to explain when you're like, hey, she came at me. So I killed her. I strangled her. I chopped her up and then I put her in a blender. I dissolved her in a bunch of chemicals. Because that to me says you are trying to hide what you did, you dumb fuck.
Exactly. Honestly, sweetie, you would have been better going with the mental illness strategy rather than the self-defense strategy in this case. That is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, he says that she attacked him with a knife, so he strangled her, and it's a load of horse shit. And it's so sad because, again, there are 2 children after this. She was beloved, obviously. It's very, very sad. He killed her in February. Mm-hmm. He was found to have done it back in March. So it took a little while to figure out what had happened.
Got it.
And he's trying to appeal. He's trying to say, hey, this is what happened. And I hope that he spends the rest of his life in jail where he belongs and they stick his hand in a blender or something.
Do you know where this actually occurred? Because you said she was a former Miss Switzerland. Did this occur in Switzerland?
The murder did happen in Switzerland.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what Swiss laws are like, but I feel like they would be fairly harsh on a case like this. Switzerland is such an entity where obviously they're jokingly known as being neutral, you know, in all things, but I feel like they aren't just going to sit back and let this guy fly out of there.
You can take so many countries that are a little bit softer on crime, quote unquote. Like I always compare Canada versus the United States because I feel like a lot of time we're kind of different ends of that spectrum.
Very much so.
However, if you puree your wife, you can live in the absolute softest of countries. And I feel like they're still going to be pretty upset that you did it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious to see how this will progress and what kind of punishment, what kind of sentencing he's going to get.
Yeah.
And I'm saying when, not if.
No, it's
because
when.
First of all, I'm not putting if out into the universe. This guy needs to absolutely pay the consequence of what he did. But what that consequence will look like, I guess we will only know with time.
Yeah.
So, what an asshole.
I know. It's a rough one. And I had this one sent to me by a number of listeners on our Instagram, my personal Instagram. They were like, hey, talk about this. Like, have you heard about this? And yeah,
we have.
Everyone's talking about it, but it's interesting to me because there aren't a lot of details that have been released about it. Like what I've mentioned here is kind of really all that I could find.
Okay.
So we will update you when we have updates, if we have updates, but I'm thinking that we're looking at a pretty harsh sentence for this guy,
for sure.
Thomas.
Yeah. It also strikes me as the kind of country, Switzerland, that don't necessarily air this on a court TV sort of situation.
No, this ain't Florida.
I'd be surprised, actually. There's a lot of countries, I believe the UK is one of them, and potentially even Canada, where you're actually not allowed to take pictures and film in courtrooms.
That's right.
That's where you get like the courtroom sketches from and stuff like that. Switzerland strikes me as the kind of country that would kind of lean more that way.
I agree.
Not to sort of televise and sensationalize a very gruesome and horrific crime like this.
Well, that's why it's so hard to find like current photos of Paul Bernardo. I was trying to find some when we did our series, and then we did Jodi Arias right afterwards. And it's interesting because Paul Bernardo, you can find courtroom drawings of him that are recent. Jodi Arias, you can look up her entire prisoner profile online.
Yes, yeah. And well, we talked about it when we covered Jodi, is like Florida being a sunshine state, as it were. All that information is very public. You can look it up if you want to. There's really nothing hidden to you.
No.
Whereas in a lot of other places, different states, but also different countries, that shit is locked down. You know, either you have to request special permission to view it, or, you know, you have to be coming from a verified like news source or something like that. So
here's a quandary for you.
Yeah.
What do you think is right? Should we be able to access all of this as a society? Should that be readily available, or should it be something that is only available to a fair few?
That's a really tough one.
Because I'm on the line of Florida. And this might be controversial, but I think that once you have, I don't think for everybody, because I don't think everyone's lives should be ruined because they committed a petty crime or something like that. But I think if you have gone around killing people, or Paul Bernardo, I don't think Paul Bernardo deserves a minute of peace. I think all of that should be available. We should, as a society, know exactly what he's doing, what programs he's doing, how likely he is to get out. He won't, but if it were to happen. Whereas with Florida, I don't agree with necessarily broadcasting everything on TV. I don't think that we should be able to see the entire trial on TV per se, but I lean more towards the side of Florida.
I think I think for me, it would be a case of time, in the sense that perhaps while obviously the investigation, the trial, and all that stuff is sort of ongoing, I don't know that all that should be readily available, because oftentimes releasing certain facts or information out into the public can really fuck with an investigation, right? Like in that case, you know, law enforcement authorities are going to want to keep certain things very close to the chest, especially when they're trying to hunt someone down and figure out, you know, who is this monster. But I think it should sort of be a thing where over time, and maybe it will go on a case-by-case basis, where it's like, okay, so 2 years has gone by, now all the information is available, or 5 years has gone by, because I don't want victims' families to be negatively affected more than obviously their lives have already been affected by something like this. But then on the flip side, I don't think a monster like this should know a minute of peace. I think they should be hounded and harassed for the rest of their lives, to be honest.
I agree, yeah.
So it's one of those things where things are not so black and white. And, but yeah, I don't know.
It's a happy medium, and oftentimes we don't see happy mediums. We just see extremes.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Like, do you think we should be able to see all and everything when it comes to cases like this? Or would you rather not? I'm curious to know you guys' thoughts.
thegrimcurriculum@gmail.com. Let us know.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the things I love to do in all things is kind of set the world to rights, as I say. Like when I'm sitting down with my girlfriends and we're like, yeah, we should be running countries and, you know, all this stuff. I love having these discussions because I think it's really important to kind of get other people's perspectives on it and kind of, you know, sometimes you go at something and be like, this monster should be dragged through the streets and hung, drawn, and quartered. And that's all fine and dandy. But how does that affect his victims? How does that affect his victims' families? You know, that kind of thing. Because for them, that may not be what they want at all. Mm-hmm. And I think in cases like that, they should be the ones that get the say in the matter.
I agree. Absolutely. So. I think that their thoughts should be considered in death penalty cases as well, as they often are, because sometimes to them that is extra hurt if this person is killed, if they don't necessarily believe in that. But we'll see what happens to Thomas.
I have a pretty wacky one coming up next for you, coming out of Indiana. Ooh. It's a fairly recent one as well, so there are still more updates to come with this. I am simply going to read you the headline, and then you can kind of react to it however you feel.
Okay.
Husband admits adding cocaine, MDMA, to wife's Coca-Cola in hopes that he would marry her daughter.
What?
Alfred Roof, I believe, or Ruff, R-U-F, 71 years old, sentenced to 4 years in prison after confessing to poisoning his wife by spiking her Coca-Cola drinks with cocaine and other drugs.
Oh my God.
He pleaded guilty to aggravated battery in July for trying to poison his wife. Like I said, been sentenced to 4 years in prison and 5 years of probation, Indiana court records show. Basically, the daughter of his wife, who is not his daughter, a daughter from a previous marriage.
Okay.
She is 31. Apparently, they had been kind of carrying on a sort of relationship.
Ew.
And this is all alleged at this point.
Course.
I want to make that very clear because the case is still ongoing. Because when I first read this story and you hear the daughter part, you're like, what is happening here? As I have read so far, it very much seems like the daughter was in on it. Bitch. The daughter and a friend, actually. So they had been providing the quote-unquote substances and drugs to Mr. Ruff to put his wife to sleep for up to 13 hours at a time so that they could come over, the daughter and her friend could come over, and I quote, put on a show for Mr. Ruff. The show involved the two women putting on Ruff's wife's negligees and then performing sex acts on each other for him.
I have said this so many times in this podcast, but can you imagine? You carry a child, you give it every ounce of strength that your body has for 9 months. You push it out like a champ. Yep. You raise it, you love it, and then it fucks your husband with its friend in your negligee?
Yeah. So, he was caught, obviously, and he's basically admitted all of this to authorities so far. So he told authorities that while he was having sex with his wife's daughter or her friend, one of the women would steal some of his wife's personal items. He also admitted to paying the women to perform sex acts. The victim's daughter told Roof that she wanted to get her mom out of the picture once they found out that they were selling their home. The victim's daughter also mentioned a life insurance policy to Ruff that her mother had in place. Luckily, she survived. The lady is still alive. Now, her name is not mentioned.
I wish her well.
I don't want to say Mrs. Ruff because I'm sure she wants nothing to do with this asshole at this point. But Ruff confirmed to deputies that he gave his wife the powdery substance 12 times from September through December of 2021.
That's so many.
I mean, this poor lady is having her evening Coca-Cola and getting far more than she bargained for.
Oh my God.
He also told deputies that the victim's daughter said she and Ruff would get married after they quote unquote took care of his wife.
Are the 2 women facing any charges?
I haven't heard anything yet.
They fucking better, man.
He acknowledged that he knew giving his wife the content of drugs that he did would eventually kill her. But he came clean to his wife because he felt bad. He detailed taking his wife to the hospital 6 times due to the symptoms she was having from this drug cocktail, including bad headaches, drowsiness, diarrhea, and lightheadedness, which obviously... This poor woman was off her tits and had no idea. Cocaine, MDMA, like just all the uppers.
Oh my, I keep saying, oh my God, but I'm legitimately shocked by this. That is awful.
Yeah. When I first started reading it, I was like, this has to be a Florida story for sure. But no, Indiana. And all he's gotten so far is 4 years in prison and 5 years probation. But I haven't heard about the daughter and her friend.
Yikes.
I'm sure there has to be some kind of, at the very least, some kind of drug charges because those are not legal substances. I guess we will wait to see how much further this goes. Stay tuned.
Yeah. My last story that I have for you, and then I have a listener email as well as our strange and unusual death.
Ooh, okay.
This is a short one. I just want to talk about it because it is, again, all over the news. Anna Delvey will perform on Dancing with the Stars with her ankle monitor. That's Anna Delvey or Anna Sorokin, depending on who you ask. She was convicted in 2019 of financial crimes after pretending to be a German heiress with a trust fund. If this sounds familiar, you may have watched the Netflix series Inventing Anna, which is phenomenal.
I haven't watched it.
You have to.
But I just don't she's a con woman.
She is.
She's just a con woman of a very high caliber.
Yes.
Why are we giving her a celebrity platform?
That's what we do. That's what we do nowadays. We got Gypsy Rose on everything. We got Anna Delvey dancing.
You know,
it's what we do.
I'm not a Dancing with the Stars fan.
No.
I've never really watched it, to be honest. In the UK, we have something called Strictly Come Dancing, which is like the UK's version of Dancing with the Stars. I watched that. That's fun, whatever. But when the Dancing with the Stars announcement came out, I first heard of it because I follow Ilona Meyer. She is the, I believe, captain of the USA Rugby women's team.
Okay.
She's a badass. She's on TikTok. You've probably seen her. She just, she was recently at the Paris Olympics and stuff. And she is also going to be on Dancing with the Stars. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. I like her. She's a badass. I think she's a really good figure to look up to. And I was like, this is awesome. She was just at the Olympics. And then on the other hand, we have Miss Anna here with her fucking ankle bracelet.
Yeah, so she served 2 years in prison, an additional 18 months detained by immigration authorities for overstaying a visa. She has been recently living under house arrest in New York with her ankle monitor while she appeals her deportation order. She sought and received permission from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to travel to Los Angeles, where the show is produced. In a press release from the network to announce season 33 cast, she was listed as notorious ankle bracelet fashionista Anna Delvey.
No.
Fuck no.
Okay, this maybe get a little political here for a second. Just like I don't think a convicted felon should be allowed to be the president of the United States, I don't think convicted felons should get to go on Dancing with the Stars.
Well, I'm really glad that you said that because someone else thought the same as you.
Okay, there you go.
Sarah Haynes called out a former president during her talk show's panel discussion. She said, "We have a felon running for president. Why are we surprised?"
It's so true, bestie.
Right?
So true.
I have some tweets I want to read you, though.
Oh, please do.
Alrighty. So one of them says, "I wonder if Anna can bedazzle her ankle bracelet."
You know what? I'm surprised she hasn't tried already.
Right? Another said, "I don't understand. This is Dancing with the Stars, not Dancing with the Felons." Next thing you know, Gypsy Rose is going to be twirling around competing for the Mirror Ball trophy.
I'm actually surprised, that Gypsy Rose wasn't. And perhaps they asked her, and perhaps she was like, maybe I should behave myself.
No, she's going to have that baby, and then she's going to go on Dancing with the Stars. Just wait. True. Someone here on Twitter X doesn't agree. They said, people in the comments clutching their pearls over an ankle monitor. It's showbiz, people. Live a little.
I have to agree with them there. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's bringing a lot of attention to it, obviously. And The thing that makes me mad though is they're not just using her for attention on the show. That's marketing, baby. I work in marketing. I know how it works. But they're giving her attention.
Of course they are. And she loves attention. It's Anna fucking Delvey. Now, someone else who decided to chime in on this was none other than Whoopi Goldberg.
She's got some strong opinions.
She does, because she's on the same network as Dancing with the Stars. So there's only so much that she can say. She said, we got to support the network. But I think back to all the families who've had family members arrested by ICE who have gone to the courts to get their dad or their mother or their brother back. And this woman, they gave her permission to do this.
Yep.
Now, should I think there's a reason? Is there a two-tiered system here with ICE? And that was when Sarah Haynes made her comment about Donald Trump.
Well, I think we've talked quite a bit about pretty privilege over the last few episodes.
Yeah.
And I think because she is an attractive blonde-haired white woman, you know, she's getting a lot more positive attention than perhaps a person of color would be getting, or, you know, stuff like that.
And she committed a lot of financial related crimes, but she is still someone who, because of everything that's happened, her story being told, the Netflix special, things like that, she's got some money. You know, she's not exactly like poor. She ain't poor.
I think that's the thing that chaps my ass, is that she committed these financial crimes in order to benefit herself, of course. Yeah, she gets the slap on the wrist. She's got the ankle bracelet. She spent some time in jail, 2 years. But now she's getting exactly what she wanted in the first place.
Yep.
She's got the celebrity. She's got the fame/infamy. She's got the money. They're going to be paying her for this.
Of course they are.
And probably a pretty penny too, I would imagine. She doesn't strike me as the kind of person that just does something for peanuts.
No, exactly.
That's what makes me mad.
I will say, though, you got to watch Inventing Anna. It's fucking good.
I've heard very good things.
You would love it. It would piss you off, but it's really good.
I think I'm just really shocked about how a con man, or, you know, we talk about Riz a lot on the show. She has it clearly because she scammed a lot of people, and not stupid people.
No.
Not just your average quote unquote civilian on the street. Really high level, like bankers and financial people and all of this. I can't help but think that the con is just going on for her.
It is. It absolutely. I'm glad that you said that, because I completely agree with you. But Anna Delvey, Dancing with the Stars, premieres later this month. I'm not watching.
I was going to say, I'm not going to be watching it, and not because of that particularly, just because I don't really watch TV like that. But if y'all out there are watching, let me know she's a good dancer. I want to at least know that.
Right?
Because if she's bad at dancing, then that really, why are we here?
All right. I'm going to pull up a listener email that we got here.
Yay.
This is in regards to some of the stuff that we said about Mormonism.
Okay.
And I don't know if she wanted to be named or not, so I'm just going to say it's from Anonymous. Girl, if you want us to name you, message me.
Yeah. Because we know who you are.
Right? Exactly.
We know, you know. When we tell the story, you're going to know.
Yeah. All right. So again, this is about some of the stuff that we said about Mormonism, especially regarding some of the sex stuff.
Okay.
Because apparently it is real. However, I have learned recently that Mormons from Utah and Mormons everywhere else are very different.
Oh.
Okay. So it says, OMG, you have got to have me vet your Mormon stuff. Much of the silly sex stuff in the episode is specific to Mormon culture in Utah and not the church.
Okay.
If you'd like to learn more about this difference, let me know. And in brackets, it says, I hate Mormons from Utah because they are so toxic.
Wow.
I come from a Mormon family, but was raised in Canada and had next to no Utah exposure. The two cultures are so different, and most of the time when I hear about a Mormon true crime event, it involves Utah Mormons, and there are so many reasons for that. And she also wrote, also super chill Mormon here, and I am not even remotely offended by anything said in this episode. Let's still be friends.
Oh, shout out to you. Because genuinely, I don't mean offense. And I'm really happy that she reached out and was like, let me tell you, I love that. Please do.
Please. If we're ever wrong or we didn't add something that we should have, we always want to hear from you.
Yes.
She goes on to say, another fun Utah Mormon sex loophole from 2000 to 2015-ish. Soaking is predominantly a Utah/Idaho trend that started as being mainstream around 2015. Before that was the Vegas loophole. BYU, Brigham Young University, is 5 hours from Vegas. Couples would drive down here for the weekend, get married, have lots of sex, and then annul the marriage before coming back to school.
Whoa.
Why? Because BYU used to not allow premarital sex until recently, even though it's technically not a part of the Mormon Church. So not only was there risk of disappointing your friends and family, you could get kicked out of university. But if you were to get married where you had sex, no one could say anything about it. This was a common loophole. Soaking and bagpiping has only picked up as a trend in the last 10 years, and honestly, I think it's because who wants to drive 5 hours when there is an easier quote-unquote loophole? But you're both right. They are just having sex. If they want to do that bad, they should just do it and be done with it. Like, as long as no one tells their bishop, who's gonna know? Just fuck already and stop putting so much pressure on each other, young ones.
Thank you so much for that. That's actually given a lot of context to this.
Yeah.
Interesting to know that our friends in Utah are not quite like our friends around the world.
Yeah, wild.
It is wild. I have heard some pretty wild stories out of BYU, but that's for another time.
And that all brings us to our latest strange and unusual death. This is from the Herald Times in 1996. And it is about a man named Mark Gleason, who was 26 years old when he died.
I feel like that name actually rings a bell.
I thought so too. But I think I was thinking of Jackie Gleason.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Go on.
All right. So the article says, a man who pushed tampons up his nose in an attempt to cure his snoring died when he suffocated in his sleep, an inquest at Guildford, Surrey was told yesterday. He had been told by doctors that his snoring was incurable, and with his girlfriend decided to solve the problem by using the tampons. Miss Lambert, the girlfriend, told the inquest that on the evening before he died, Mr. Gleason drank some wine and took a few sleeping tablets. They talked about his snoring and decided to use the tampons to stop him from waking up the household. She said, "It just happened. The conversation just came up about the snoring and we both agreed that's what he would do." She left him asleep on a sofa at her home and found him dead the next morning with the tampons up his nose. Mr. Gleason's mother explained that her son's snoring was due to sinus problems following a road accident, and she said, "We used to treat it as a joke at home. The day before he died, he said he had gone to the doctor about his snoring and told me there's not a lot that he can do about it." Pathologist Dr. Peter Jackson said that Mr. Gleason's death on January 23rd was caused by asphyxiation due in part to the tampons, and said the sleeping tablets would have also added to his breathing difficulties. Mm-hmm. The death was classified as accidental.
Whoa. Yeah, you can't fuck around. If you're the kind of person that wears like a sleep apnea mask and stuff, like it's for a reason.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful, even in the sense like people with a deviated septum, you have to be really careful when you're sleeping. And I know a recent trend was like the mouth taping while you sleep.
Oh my God. Yeah, don't do that.
I'm not going to lie. I have the shittiest sinuses in the world. I am 100% a open mouth breather when I'm sleeping. I'm probably just like catching all the flies. I can't breathe through my nose properly because of my sinus issues. So if I were to tape my mouth closed, I probably would asphyxiate in my sleep. You gotta be really careful with stuff like that. And like you say, the sleeping pills would have lowered the heart rate, lowered the breathing rate. And then if he's not able to get enough oxygen through those nasal passages, he would have just died in his sleep.
That's very sad.
It is really sad. And over snoring.
I feel bad for the girlfriend too, because she was like, I just wanted a quiet night. And now I have way too quiet of a night because my boyfriend's dead.
No kidding. Yikes.
So with that being said, friends,
don't shove tampons
up your nose. Unless you have a nosebleed. Apparently they do help, and some soccer players will do that.
You know what? I am going to put out a little PSA. So for nosebleeds, yes, fine, go for it. It's just going to soak up the blood. There is rumors going around, and have gone around for a long, long time now, that if you have like a bullet hole or something that you can shove a tampon in it to stop the bleeding, do not do that. All it will do is soak up the blood. It will not stop the bleeding. Use proper compression, etc., etc. Do not put tampons in bullet holes.
And according to Dr. Phil on an episode that I once saw, don't soak them in alcohol and shove them up your butt either.
Yeah, don't be boofing tampons. Just fucking drink your booze like a normal person.
Right? And that brings us to the end of another fascinating episode of Extra Credit. Make sure you follow us on Twitch, because we're on there now, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that fun stuff.
Hell yeah.
We are currently exploring the story of Slenderman and the Slenderman murders on the regular show, so check that out. We are also looking for submissions for our Grim Encounters series, so if you have a story of something strange and unusual that happened to you, ghosts, aliens, cryptids, scary people, whatever, email us at thegrimcurriculum@gmail.com.
Absolutely. It's coming up to spooky season, and I think we'd like to do a Grim Encounters at some point during October. That'd be real nice. So we'll wait for that.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been the Grim Curriculum.
Extra credit.